This is Seasons of Discontent with your hosts Rick Snyder and Matt Combs.
Welcome to Seasons of Discontent, Season 10, Episode 1, brought to you by Rick Snyder's Washington, and I'm Rick Snyder.
I'm Matt.
And we're back discussing for our 10th time, 10th season, all things Washington sports and life as part of the mighty Rick Snyder Empire. Or whatever. But yeah, they said we wouldn't make it a season, and we've lasted now 10 on this show.
Yeah.
So one of these days, they're going to be a winning team, and people actually watch.
I know, right? I don't know what we're going to do then.
Yeah, I'm tired even thinking about it. The season is over. Thank God is my only expression.
Yeah.
I was sitting there in the third quarter of the game at the stadium, 90% easy Cowboys fans. Could have been 95% Cowboys fans. And I just thought, what are we doing here? This is just crazy. It's bad and it's boring. And they lost their last 7 home games by an average point differential that was the second worst since 2000 in the league. Only the winless Detroit team did worse, which means, they got beat by an average of about 20 points a game at home.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, what a death march this was. It was the 4th time that I've covered a 13-loss season, but this was a 17-gamer this time. I mean, it never ended. And I knew after the bye that they would stink because I knew they gave up.
Yeah.
They won't stink, but they gave up. And you notice some people had injuries and didn't play at the end. The most telling stat on this team was Montez Sweat still led the team in sacks. Didn't play the second half of the season here. He led the Bears, too. First player ever in NFL history to do 2 teams in 1 year. That was pretty wild.
Mm-hmm.
With only 6 at each. It's not like he had 20 sacks or something.
Right.
It shows you how this team just gave up. So, I don't know. If I look back and if I had to grade this season, a D-, maybe I wouldn't say an F, but it would be a D-.
Yeah, and it's funny now that we're talking about the season being over. I remember after that first win against Arizona, even though it wasn't impressive, they didn't crush them like Vegas had thought that they were going to, with all of the, good faith that was out there with Harris and team taking over as the ownership, and they immediately came in and wanted to change the game day experience and all the good that was going on. And then they started 2-0, that wild game out in Denver. How after that it just all kind of went downhill and, the season just kind of drug on. If I had to grade it, we could grade it 2 separate ways. If you want to grade it on just an overall performance of the team, I would say a D-. But if you want to look at setting us up for the future, this was an A+ season. Look, you've got a brand new owner who's got a pocket full of cash. You got a guy that wants to come into a sport that he's never been a part of and make a big splash. He has set this franchise up to be an attractive place for once. You're setting a guy, you're bringing in, you bring in potentially the hottest general manager available. You're going to bring in one of the top sought after coaches available. You're going to give them the 2nd overall pick in the draft and $90 million in cap space. I mean, this is an attractive job for once, Rick. And it's, I have a feeling with Harris, he's kind of stuck to his words since he's come in this league. He wanted to upgrade the fan experience. It did, even though the stadium still leaks. They did things, they did special things to try and, put lipstick on a pig, but it's some things that have been ignored over the past 24 years. And, he's sticking to his words. He's moving fast with these GM / president of football ops interviews. They started today. They're moving into tomorrow. And the hottest general manager candidate, Peters out of San Francisco, took 1 interview, and it's with us. That's so I can grade it. I can grade the season 2 separate ways there for you if you want.
Yeah. One thing that Josh Harris really has to do is still win over the fans, because they sold out every game, but really the first game was an event. Washington events. Man, it was a great 2 months. Bought the team 3-0 preseason, ended the Ravens preseason streak, won a couple games, man, and then it all went to hell.
Yeah. Yeah.
But every game was just, the visiting fans owned it. There was a couple that were near 50-50, but San Francisco owned it heavy. Dallas was like 90+%. That might have been the most ever. I mean, really, it was that big. But so a season ticket base, I think, is still down to like 25,000 maybe, and then they sold their tickets, didn't come. So make some moves here to get people back in the stands, because next year's schedule wasn't particularly a very sexy one. This one wasn't bad, but he's got to do it the right way. I think he did. I loved how he hired 2 guys to basically be a search committee, bring them these people. One of them was the Golden State Warriors. I thought that was interesting, but only that I didn't mind it because the guy helped out a great team. And it doesn't matter if you're bouncing the ball or running it. You know how to build a team.
Yeah, that guy was, what was his name? Myers. He was brought in because that guy can identify people that are going to win. Like you said, it doesn't matter if you're bouncing a ball or hitting a baseball. Jimmy Haslam did the same thing when he bought the Browns. He brought in the guy from the baseball world, the analytics guy. That was one of the first times that the NFL had ever experienced analytics. It didn't have an immediate impact the way, that we hope it does here in Washington. But, the Browns are in the playoffs, and the Browns are winning with a 39-year-old quarterback, and it's their 5th quarterback on the season. So, something is panning out there with that. But yeah, I mean, one way to get that fan base excited, I think, is going to happen in May. We will talk about, I'm sure, the draft at some point. I think free agency can really help this team, get the fans back as well. There's some pretty good free agents that are going to be available in positions that you need. I know, what's his name? Devin White, the linebacker from the Buccaneers, is someone that I'd have my eye on if I was Peters and co. I'm assuming Adam Peters is getting the job. That honestly, that's my number 1 overall pick, Peters. And then if you want to supplement Peters, because right now we don't know the status of Marty and Marty. I know Marty Herney was, supposedly liked by Harris, and he was going to stay on as long as he wanted him to stay on to help pick stuff for the next season. Plus, as we talked about for a couple shows ago, those guys can't necessarily just be fired right now with the draft coming up. They've been doing all this legwork over the past year with the scouting department, so you kind of want to keep them in place to get their input, I would say. But ideally, I would love to see this guy, what's his name, Perry, or yeah, I want to see that guy, the kid from San Francisco. I want to see him as your president of football ops or whatever you want to call him. And I would love them to supplement him with this Cunningham guy out of Chicago as the GM in title. If they could nab 2 of these guys, that would be amazing.
Yeah, I mean, they make up titles all the time. You're the vice president of whatever. That's bother me any. But I think Peters is probably going to be the guy, unless Harris. We don't know how Harris is with money like this. Does he pay a real? Dan Snyder would just pay you whatever. But I don't know what Harris, if he even can do that. But it'll be interesting to see.
Harris's MO with the Sixers and the Devils has to hire people that know what they are doing, that will hire the right people to run the franchise and pick the players. And Harris just wants to sit on the wood. He wants to sit in the owner's suite, and he just wants to count his checks. He doesn't want. This is the most anti Dan Snyder owner that we could have ever got, I think.
I don't know how to react to a competent organization. It's been so long.
I know, and I don't think it's going to be a quick turnaround. This guy is not going to come in here and just wave his magic wand and say, "Alakazam, you're going to win 12 games next year." But if you look at a team like Houston had the number 2 overall pick. They drafted the right quarterback. They brought in the right head coach in D'Amico Ryans. They supplemented around him with young players, with veterans, with guys that have been there, and they're going to the playoffs. I mean, the correlation cannot be ignored in this instance with Washington. But I'm not so as much. I'm not so scared, I guess I could say, in comparison to previous years, as to where Dan's got to overpay people to come here. I think that these guys are going to they're going to see the writing on the wall, and they're going to say, you know what, Washington's not a bad spot.
Yeah. The thing that Harris has already done is he hired some consultants to find out what he needs. He never did that. And Dan Snyder never did that. And he didn't know anybody. That was the worst part.
Right.
So, he was always, he never wanted to listen to anybody. So, already Harris has said, I don't know. Let me find the pros to help. That's a great thing. As far as coaching candidates, man, I was looking at all the betting lines. I get all these things in the mail all the time. And I laugh at some of them. One of them has, EB being the favorite at 4-1. Nah, I don't see that happening. I don't see EB staying. Another one, bookies.com, has Belichick at 3-1. Nah, they can't hire Belichick because the crowd would just revolt.
Yeah.
Great coach. He's also lost the most games in NFL history, but great coach. But no, that's not what you need.
But this move has to be an anti-Dan Snyder move. Belichick is a Dan Snyder move. Harbaugh is a Dan Snyder move. These are guys that are going to want to come in and have ultimate control and final say. How many times have we been through that between the Shanahans and the Riveras and the Gibbs? God bless Joe Gibbs. But in Gibbs 2.0, that was all his players. He was the VP, the GM, he was the czar. It does not, that model, does not work right now. Just like we talk about on the field, you have to have a good quarterback. Everything is running through the quarterback. The run game is an afterthought. You have to step up and be in the modern NFL mold, and a guy like Harbaugh, who just won a national title, is going to come in here and say, well, I picked all those college players. Why can't I pick all my NFL players? I took Colin Kaepernick to the Super Bowl. These are guys with egos. Even Mike Vrabel. As much as of a good coach as Mike Vrabel is, a retread, Raheem Morris, these guys are not, the fans are not going to come back for that. This has to be a young, bright general manager or player of personnel or whatever title you want to give him, and a young, up and coming, sought after coach. And that's why everything I've said and everybody that I listen to today, all the local people, they're all with this Ben Johnson guy from Detroit. I'm not 100% sold on the guy. It's only his first year as an offensive coordinator. The Lions were good, but were also so-so at times. I don't know if you blame Goff or who you want to blame, but this would be, I'll tell you what, if they do end up getting the kid from San Fran and Johnson, this will be the first time in history that we've ever gotten the top two candidates for a position.
Yeah, quite a while. I mean, it would go way back to figure that one out. Maybe George Allen or maybe Lombardi.
Yeah.
Wasn't around covering then, but that might be it. But Harbaugh is intriguing because he's obviously shopping himself. Either he goes to the NFL with big money, or he forces Michigan to even give him a bigger deal than they had.
Yeah.
He never, but he has NFL experience and he did very well in the NFL. So this, the Harbaugh genes are strong, man. The other guy in Baltimore is doing great too. He may win the Super Bowl.
I was gonna say he might be going to the Super Bowl this year.
They're both very good coaches, and Jim is 60, so he's not, it's old enough, but being older than 60, I won't say it's ancient. But Ben Johnson is obviously everybody's first love, but that doesn't mean that he wants to come here. Even he may want to go to like the Chargers with Herbert.
And one good article that I read regarding Ben Johnson is he can leverage David Tepper in Carolina, because Tepper's kind of the new Dan Snyder, where he's going to go and throw a big bag of money at a solution and hope that it works. But also he's a crazy person. We saw him throwing drinks at his own fans. So, is that the type of environment that you want to work for? But as far as a head coach goes, I would say, with the vacancies that we have out in the NFL right now, Belichick is more suited, I think, for the LA Chargers job. You got to look at the market. You got to look at the team. It's LA. They're the number 2 team in their own stadium, let alone the city that they play in. Like, nobody ever thinks about the Chargers. It's a good way to raise their queue over the Rams, or at least on par with the Rams. They already have a quarterback. and they have a pretty good defense, which he could, he's a defensive minded guy. I think that makes the most sense for him. I think Harbaugh's biggest destination is probably going to end up being Las Vegas, just because Mark Davis is not afraid to give him ultimate control. And then, the other vacancies, I don't really know who's been rumored. I mean, like I said, I know Ben Johnson's name's been attached to at least 3 of these jobs. I was very surprised by the Raheem Morris interview. Is that a Rooney Rule thing? Is that wasn't Raheem here twice already?
Yeah, and he was at Tampa for a while.
Yeah.
And he's not the worst coach, and I remember him here. And another guy they even brought up, what was the other one?
Well,
Bobby
Bobby
Slowick,
yeah.
who was also in Washington at one time. I was a little surprised that one came up.
Yeah, and then also, Dan Quinn, the defensive coordinator for the Cowboys, is on the list.
Yeah, I'm not a big Dan Quinn fan.
I'm not either. His tenure he might be one of those really good coordinators that's not cut out to be a head coach. And really, Rick, while we're talking about head coaches, I kind of want to shift a little bit. I don't, look, Rivera said it best in his press conference. For 3.5 years, I was managing. For 5 games now, I've been coaching. Ron Rivera does deserve some credit for this team. Ron Rivera had to endure a lot, and unlike when Shanahan got fired or Gruden got fired or, Jim Zorn, whoever you want to talk about, those guys were they just couldn't win. With Rivera, I think the job just drained on him. And me personally, I hold no ill will towards Ron Rivera. The man went through cancer while he was here, had a cancer of an owner, had to go through a name change, a cheerleader scandal, a new ownership group. Like, you'll never hear me say a really bad word about what he's done for this franchise. And, was he the best GM or talent picker? No. His first round draft picks have honestly sucked in this town. But at the same time, he turned Jace Young into a third. He turned Sweat into a second, setting up our future GM and head coach. So he'll never see this, but me personally, thank you, Ron.
Yeah, I mean, that the team put out a long statement from Ron, which he praised it. I mean, they shook hands and parted amicably, and that's not a very common thing.
Well, it was also an $8 million handshake.
Well, yeah, and that's what people say. Why didn't he just resign or retire? Because he wouldn't get $8 million severance pay. That's why.
Right.
We all understand that. But it was a decent party, and it was nice to see, because Ron Rivera is also very well respected and liked around the league. And if you treat him like a dog, then other people are going to notice that before they come here too. So it was important that they ended well, and he gave them the whole season, like he said would. Didn't look like Dan. Because after they came back from the bye, I knew they weren't going to win again. They just had nothing left. Yeah. And how fast can we lose 4 games? I don't know. Name change came up with Harris when he talked to the media on Monday. He doesn't, as I suspected, he talked to the media when he bought the team, and I figured we wouldn't see him till the end of the year, and that's what happened. He's not going to talk to us very much, and that's okay. But he said, basically, I got a lot to do. I can't even think about the name change. So enough of that nonsense.
The name change will occur when they move back to DC.
Yeah, that's the best time to do it. And I put it on here. I run this magazine, Command Post, and we had to pick the MVPs on offense, defense, and special teams for the year-end issue. And I was like, oh my God, who are we going to pick? And offense, who would you take?
It has to be Terry.
Right. It has to be Terry. All right. They got him at 1,000 yards. Literally, the offensive linemen all jumped up,
shoved him for the last 3 yards.
Yeah, they pushed him that 3 yards to get there. It was nice to see teammates do that for each other.
Yeah.
Defense? Who are you taking on defense?
Montez Sweat.
Yeah, that's a good one.
He led he led the team in sacks and fetched us a 2nd round draft pick.
Yeah, I mean, because there's just no one to pick. Even Deron Payne got paid last year and then came back and did nothing with it this year. It was his first poor year, I thought.
Were you surprised by the amount of, I don't want to say bashing, but just maybe the amount of comments that came out of like a Sam Cosmi and stuff like that about coaching and about, during locker clean out, Ron had already been fired. Cosme had brought up how he wanted to run the ball more. We need to run the rock. There were some very besmirching comments coming out of that locker room. I don't know if that's necessarily just frustrations because, this team was not supposed to go 4-13. They were only going to be maybe 6-11, 7-10, but they still underperformed. They lost to the Giants. They lost to a lot of bad teams.
Their players often say stuff when they no longer have to worry about, who's the coach.
I got you.
So I take it that way. If you finally said what you thought, I respect you more if you said it before. But then and nobody talks about the boss about expecting to get fired. So
yeah.
I understand, but that didn't do anything. All right, special teams MVP. I don't know, man. It ain't the snapper.
It's Tress Way.
Joey Sly made 80% of his field goals, missing extra points. And Tress Way wasn't his best year punting.
Doesn't matter. He's the only one that helped us on that special teams.
Well, I mean, the other guy you could say is Crowder as a punt returner did pretty decent.
Yeah, but realistically, he had one good game.
He had, one. He only played here about half the season, but yeah, that's crazy. Do we got any time left? I didn't check my clock. But
yeah, YouTube doesn't restrict us. We're good.
All right, so before we go, Girl Scout Cookie Day came out today. I hadn't told this to Matt yet, but so they started selling the Thin Mints, Samoas, Tagalongs, Adventurefuls, whatever that is.
Those are the trefoils. They changed the name of them.
Caramel chocolate chip dip, Do-si-dos for the peanut butter sandwich, Girl Scout s'mores, lemonades, lemon ups, toasty yay, toffee-tastic, and trefoils. What about So I have a long running feud with Grant Paulson, 167. That I say Thin Mints are not a cookie; they're a mint. But other than that, I do it to torment them. What is your favorite on the lineup?
The chocolate covered peanut butter cookies.
Yeah, the Do-si-dos. Those are strong. I like the Samoas.
I'm not a big coconut guy, so I know everybody goes crazy for that cookie, but I'm just not a big coconut guy.
I mean, I don't like the lemonades or the lemon ups.
Never even had those.
I haven't had a Girl Scout cookie, and I don't know when, because one, they don't have a whole lot in the box anymore. What are they, $5 now? And
yeah, like $5 and you get 20 cookies.
And I can eat them before I've gotten home.
Yeah.
They eat outside the grocery store and go, oh, there's a customer. But I don't do it because I know I'll eat the whole thing before I get back to the house. So I can't eat these things. But if I had to eat one, maybe Tagalongs or
the Tagalongs. Those are my favorites.
Yeah, those are, man, Girl Scout cookies are like crack.
I know, man. Anything with chocolate and peanut butter, man, sign me up. I'm good.
My last place I lived for a while, a woman lived next to me, and she was like the Girl Scout cookie coordinator, and her garage was just full. It was like having my own 7-Eleven next door. You walk over and here's $5. Give me a box of.
You got the garage door open. You just walk over, hit slipper of $5, and grab a box.
Yeah. Oh, it was awesome. Yeah,
that's funny.
Yeah, so the Girl Scouts stay away from me. The Boy Scouts have always tried to come up with something like, kettle corn or something. But
yeah, we tried the popcorn thing.
But they're like $15 or something crazy
for some mediocre, microwavable popcorn.
Yeah, except now you can get Girl Scout cookies around a year and ice cream and all this.
Yep.
They're ruining the brand. So I don't know. Well, at least there's something to talk about. I can't eat them anymore, but whatever. All right, well, I'm out of here. I'm Rick Snyder.
I'm Matt.
See you soon. We'll be back Friday.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to Seasons of Discontent with your hosts, Rick Snyder and Matt Combs.